Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, September 17. Former Rangers captain wants board changes at Ibrox. Report by Stuart Wilson. Barry Ferguson believes Rangers face a crucial decision on whether to appoint a new CEO before naming a chairman. John Gilligan is temporarily filling Bennett's role. King insists the club needs fresh leadership with a long-term strategy, proposing he guides the club for the next 2 years. Ferguson heard the discussion on the radio and tried to dissect everything that's been going on at his old club, especially since there's 2 vacancies of huge importance lying empty. The former Rangers captain told the Go Radio football show, "It was a little bit of a surprise when I heard the news. The most important thing is that John Bennett gets back to good health, so I wish him a speedy recovery. He's come in the last year or so, and he's put a fair bit of money into the club. But when I heard the news, my first thoughts were, I hope that he gets back to good health." Now John Gilligan has come in as acting chairman, and John knows the club inside out. He was here previously, and I am sure he will do a good job until a new chairman is going to be announced. I've known him for a long time, very passionate Rangers man, and I think it's a very good appointment until they get the new chairman in place. Discussing King's comments suggesting he would be keen on taking over the reins as Ibrox chairman, the retired Scotland international midfielder said, "At this moment, John Gilligan has stepped in, and we just need to see what will arise with John Bennett stepping down for health reasons. But what I do know is Rangers do need a chairman in pretty soon, and a CEO. They are the 2 most important people at the club, so I am sure while John has stepped in on a caretaker basis, that will be one of his main priorities to make sure that Rangers get the right man to take them forward. At Rangers, it is not a case that you can wait months. I think this needs to get sorted pretty quickly, because it is a role that is the most important, the leader at the club, and that is a chairman and just below him the CEO, which Rangers have been without. In the coming weeks, I fully expect Rangers to have somebody. It has to be somebody that has worked in the industry before, but it also has to be someone that has a connection. I think that's important." Reflecting on the current gulf between Rangers and title rival Celtic, Ferguson added, "I was sitting at the last Old Firm game, and apart from the first 10 minutes you could see the quality. And I'm not just talking about on the pitch, it was on the bench. They are making good changes. But listen, it's going to be a period of time that Rangers are going through a bit of change from the top. So hopefully in the coming weeks we can find out who's going to be taking the club forward. Report by Stuart Wilson. Evening Times Sport, September 17. The headache task McGregor is glad to give Rodgers. Report by Joe Donnelly. As Celtic prepare for their opening UEFA Champions League encounter against Slovan Bratislava tomorrow, Brendan Rodgers has some important decisions to make regarding his starting 11. With record signing Arne Engels entering the team on Saturday against Hearts, Paulo Bernardo was dropped to the bench despite the Portuguese midfielder's fine form so far this season. Between Engels, Bernardo, Rio Hatate and Callum McGregor, one player is bound to miss out in the starting lineup in Celtic's midfield. However, the club captain reckons this is a headache he and his peers all over the pitch are happy to give the manager. Said McGregor, "I think everybody wants that. I think you speak to the players. Elite football at this level is ruthless, and you want competition for places. It's the only way to keep the level high and keep driving standards. What I've seen of the group so far, they drive their own standards. There are some amazing senior pros, and the way they look after everybody and set the tone is excellent. That's the manager's job, to pick the team, but all we can do is push as hard as we can in training. When we get the chance to play, then give him that headache as well, and I am sure he will pick the right set of players." Meanwhile, McGregor has pointed out a sweet moment for him as he looks back against his time at Parkhead. As club captain, he is preparing to lead the Hoops out at Parkhead into the Champions League for a third consecutive season, and the 31-year-old has revealed a sweet family moment from his first team debut 10 years ago. He said, "The game against Reykjavik was as big a turning point you can get. Your first team debut and early rounds of the Champions League. You want to make an impact and be remembered, because a lot of people come through and have 5 or 6 games, then it doesn't materialise into the way they first planned it would. My parents stayed up until 4 a.m. to welcome me back when I first got back from the game. It was a brilliant family moment." McGregor scored the only goal of the game to give Celtic a 1-0 victory over KR Reykjavik in a Champions League qualifier back in July 2014. Looking ahead to this year's campaign, the skipper says, "Everything points to a positive beginning for Celtic." Speaking to UEFA TV about the new format, he said, "It's fresh, it's new, and everybody will be playing in it for the first time. Obviously, I think your seeding then helps as well. Coming from pot 3, you are then playing against teams of a rough kind of marker of where you think you should be at. We've got a home game to start the competition. It all points to a sort of positive beginning of the campaign. On the night we have to do a lot right to make sure we maximise that." The revamped tournament will see a 36-team single league phase, with Celtic playing 8 games in total. A top 8 finish will earn teams a place in the last 16, while those finishing between 9th and 24th will play a 2-leg knockout tie for the chance to advance to the next round. Brendan Rodgers' side will face Bratislava, RB Leipzig, Club Brugge and Young Boys at home, with away trips to Aston Villa, Borussia Dortmund, Atalanta and Dinamo Zagreb. Report by Lana Mackay. Evening Times Sport, September 17. Nick Rogers says, chaos and crass antics, but women's golf wins again at Solheim Cup. No matter what you do in life, there's always someone telling you how you should be doing it. And I'm not talking about hectoring SNP ministers here. I read one of those smug, preaching self-help articles the other day, presumably written by someone who exists on a purifying diet of seeds, steam, and spoonfuls of goading piety, and it was all about rest. According to this regeneration guru, if sleep is the only rest you're getting at the weekend, then you may as well just curl yourself up into the fetal position and give up. Apparently a half-decent kip of a night is simply not enough to survive and thrive in this bamboozling world of ours. As well as physical rest, you must also shoehorn in periods of mental rest, emotional rest, spiritual rest, social rest, sensory rest, and creative rest. Why don't you just give it a bloody rest and get on with your column, snarled the sports editor, as I hastily tried to untangle myself from my half-cocked, meditative lotus position. What a sight. Anyway, we could probably all do with a bit of a lie down after a pulsating, compelling 3 days of Solheim Cup cut and thrust. Once again, the meeting between the USA and Europe delivered on all fronts. Well, apart from delivering fans from their cars to the course, the great spectator shuttle transport debacle of the opening morning was the most calamitous day for buses since the coach in the Italian job veered off the road and was left dangling over a cliff. It forced the LPGA Tour high Hedians into a grovelling mea culpa, while the reputational damage to an organisation charged with promoting one of the biggest showpieces in women's sport was considerable. You won't grow the game by having thousands of men, women, and importantly children standing in a queue for 3 hours waiting to get in and missing the chance to savour the unique atmosphere of the first tee on the first day. According to eyewitness accounts, even the bloomin' portaloos were locked. A true shit show then. It was an unforgivable fiasco at an event of such magnitude. As for the golfing show itself, well, it made for a quite terrific spectacle, even if the frankly ridiculous episode involving 2 United States caddies during Saturday's 4 balls almost left you wanting to gouge your own eyes out. When Alison Lee, in partnership with Megan Kang, holed her approach to the second for a thrilling Eagle 2, the Americans went utterly berserk. The 2 bagmen ripped off their shirts. It was part of a bet between players and caddies, apparently, and roared themselves hoarse amid an unsightly orgy of hooting, hollering, swearing, and belly bumping. This was only the second hole, remember, and the Europeans still had to play. It was all hideously unedifying. As my esteemed colleague Ewan Murray of The Guardian wrote, what next? Bum cheek bearing on the 18th green. The way things are rapidly descending in this world, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. We all know that these fraught, highly charged team contests give golf the opportunity to burst from its straitjacket. There's nothing wrong with pumped-up passion, but there's a limit. I do not want to sound like some crotchety Victorian prude, spluttering derision at his wife after she had indecency to remove her bonnet during a boating trip on the Serpentine. But the sight of semi-naked caddies would have had me rushing for the shuttle buses, if you could get one. This attention-seeking nonsense was a new low. I dread to think what the United States celebrations were like in the aftermath of their win. "We're going to go so wild," shrieked Lilia Vu, who nabbed the deciding point in the 15.5, 12.5 victory. "I think there's going to be caddy shirts off in the team room, probably more." Blimey, it conjures up some deliciously appalling imagery. As the United States got up to all sorts, the Europeans were left to lick their wounds. Some were more painful than others. Having been sat out of 3 sessions, Leona Maguire, the Irish woman who had been a prolific points winner in her previous 2 Solheim Cup appearances, came back for the singles and eased to a 4-3 win over Ali Ewing. When it was all said and done, a brassed-off Maguire put out a post on social media saying, "Form is a temporary, class is permanent," in a veiled dig at European captain Suzanne Pettersson. Maguire had every reason to feel peeved, but what about the old phrase, "There's no I in team"? While her post was hardly on a par with the excruciating public filleting of Tom Watson by Phil Mickelson at the Ryder Cup in 2014, it lacked a bit of, well, class. Not long after that initial post, Maguire updated her social media site with a more honourable message stating that Europe, win as a team, lose as a team, before praising her teammates and lauding the experience. There may, however, be a few more revealing words to come out of Maguire yet, as the coals get rolled over. In terms of the closeness of the competition, the Solheim Cup remains golf's most captivating team contest. Yes, there was chaos with buses and crass antics from caddies, but women's golf was a winner once again. Roll on 2026, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, September 17. Rangers must stick with Clement. Report by Stuart Wilson. Michael Stewart has voiced concerns for Rangers manager Philippe Clement amid ongoing upheaval at the club. John Gilligan is currently serving as interim chairman following John Bennett's decision to step down from the role, while the search for a new chief executive continues after James Bisgrove's exit to the Saudi Pro League on May 30. Former chairman David King has expressed a strong interest in returning, even detailing his visions for the Glasgow Giants, but the Ibrox directors have rejected his bid. Rangers sit 5 points behind leaders Celtic in the Scottish Premiership table, having narrowly edged past Dundee United at Tannadice on Sunday. And with 5 games played, sections of the light blue support have questioned Clement's leadership, despite his squad undergoing a huge rebuild during the summer. Stewart acknowledged the critics, but believes things must be sorted at board level before serious discussions are made about the head coach's position changing hands. And he said, "They started the game brightly against Dundee United, but I think over the course of the full 90 minutes there's not anybody who comes out of it thinking it is a stellar performance. But it is a win. It gives them something to build from. But in reality, what do Rangers do here? I fear for the manager there's a real pressure that is building, and the pressure from the supporters is of course huge. Does the pressure become too much and the board capitulate and get rid of another manager and start all over again? Or is there going to be an acceptance and an understanding that they have got to give somebody a bit of time? They gave Steven Gerrard time, and eventually he was able to win the title. This is a difficult position for Rangers. Turnover is massively lower than Celtic when you add in the Champions League money. How do you bridge that gap? You're having to turn over a squad, turn over a board, trying to find executives. I just don't think the wise thing to do would be to try and find a new manager. I know there are some serious questions being asked of him, but his hands are tied to a great extent at the moment. Report by Stuart Wilson. Evening Times Sport, September 17. Dave King's hopes of Rangers' return dashed by Ibrox board. Report by Ewan Payton. The Rangers board is to reject Dave King's offer to return to the club as chairman. The Rangers Review reports that the South African-based businessman will not be returning after his dramatic announcement last night. His hopes of a return have been dashed by the Ibrox hierarchy, as key investors have rallied around the club following the resignation of John Bennett for health reasons. King stepped down from his previous position at the Scottish Premiership club 4 years ago. He believes he's the best man for the job as Rangers' search for a replacement for Bennett goes on. It is believed there is no desire among established figures at the club to reach out to King for his services. John Gilligan, who was King's ally when rescuing the club in 2015, is leading the club in the chairman role on an interim basis. It is understood he will continue in the role for as long as required. King has said, "I think I might be the best person to do it for 2 years. I don't want to do it for 4 or 5 years, but I know the club well enough, and I do think it's a 2-year job. I would not be looking to invest more money in the club. I don't think that's the way forward for the club." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, September 17. Scott Brown on where Celtic can cause damage in Champions League. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Legendary Celtic captain Scott Brown reckons his old club are a class above anyone else in the Scottish Premiership, and now he is challenging them to make their mark on a European stage. Brendan Rodgers' men begin their latest Champions League campaign with a home tie against Slovan Bratislava tomorrow night, providing Celtic an ideal opportunity to get points on board early into the new league phase. Brown, who is currently manager of Ayr United in the Scottish Championship, has been impressed by the squad Rodgers has built and does not see why they cannot emulate their unbeaten domestic form when they meet continental opposition over the coming months. Speaking on Premier Sports show, the Scottish Football Social Club, the former Celtic skipper said, "They have been excellent, not conceded a goal in the league, dominating games. Brendan has always wanted to play possession-based football, and he's got a drive to make sure that every single player gets better. They work hard and they look after themselves. You can see it's proven the case yet again. Celtic look a class above everybody else in the league. Whether they are playing Rangers or playing Hearts, they are dominating games, and that's what's exciting about watching them at this moment. The players that they have brought in will hopefully enhance the squad in the Champions League as well, because the hardest thing in football is to go from the Champions League back to the SPL, because there is a big difference, especially how hard the lads have to work in the Champions League games." Asked for his take on the fresh format that's being rolled out across the 3 European Cup competitions this season, and whether Celtic can realistically progress to the next round, Brown stated, "I think the home games are going to be huge for them. They need a good start. And to be fair, versus Slovan Bratislava on Wednesday is probably the best fixture they could have hoped for. It's at home in front of the fans against Bratislava. If they can get 3 points, then I think they will be in a really good position. I think the strength and depth of squad is going to help them, as in Champions League, then going back into the SPL, because Brendan can obviously rotate players and leave players ready for certain games. There's going to be some huge games. You're going to Dortmund away from home, Atalanta away from home, down to Aston Villa. They will want to go and compete. They always want to play Brendan's style of football, pressing teams up the park and causing teams problems, and he won't go away from that. I think that's the best thing from that squad, but now you've got to go and do that in the Champions League as well. Meanwhile, fellow panellist Michael Stewart discussed the impact made by Aaron Engels and Luke McCowan after the summer signings opened their Celtic goal-scoring accounts against Hearts on Saturday. Huge, the ex-Hearts and Hibs midfielder described their contributions. A great moment for both the guys, their first goals for the club. Obviously for Luke McCowan, being a Celtic supporter, I think Brendan Rodgers spoke about it after the game, that it's a special goal. He is somebody that I think a lot of Celtic supporters are looking at thinking he's a good player, but is maybe going to be a squad player. But I genuinely do believe with the amount of games Celtic have got and the quality he's got, that he'll be knocking on the door to really have a shout at playing in the big games. I think he's a really top talent. Engels looks good as well. The two of them are in good positions and are good additions. The one position I'm just slightly unsure of for Celtic is in that wider area. Just a bit of that X factor. Someone that could do something out of nothing at that Champions League level that can potentially win them a game. I'm just not sure they're as strong in that area as they are everywhere else. For me, James Forrest, I still think he's the best, and I wonder whether he was rested at the weekend because he'll be starting against Slovan Bratislava. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, September 18. Graham McGarry reveals how Celtic can make paradise hell in the Champions League. Welcome to hell. It's been some time since Celtic could say that to their visitors in the Champions League. The win over Feyenoord last season that rounded off another campaign in Europe's elite competition was a welcome one, albeit something of a token one in material terms, as their chances of progression to the knockout stage were already over before the game kicked off. Nevertheless, it was significant in at least one regard, as it was Celtic's first home triumph on the grandest stage in club football since a triumph over Ajax back in 2013. In the behind-the-scenes documentary released by the club last week, Brendan Rodgers told his players in a dressing room huddle that the famous old stadium may be paradise for those of a Celtic persuasion, but it had to become hell for everyone else, as it once used to be. In recent years, superstars from the likes of Real Madrid have rolled up and paid lip service to the incredible atmosphere generated by the supporters before making light of it on the pitch. The current Celtic team, though, are hoping that by making it as inhospitable as possible this evening for Slovan Bratislava, who with the greatest respect are no Real Madrid, they can spook the unfancied Slovakians. If Celtic are to have any chances of progression to the play-off round for the knockout stage, which is their minimum aim, then the matches at Celtic Park, such as the one this evening, will be critical, and midfielder Paulo Bernardo is hoping to fulfil his manager's demand to give their opponents hell in Glasgow's East End. Said Bernardo, "It's always important that teams do not feel comfortable playing away. Playing at home has to be an advantage for us. I think that was the message that the coach wanted to say to us, because if we play well and we do our best in the game, the fans will be with us. In turn, if the fans are with us, paradise will be hell for them. I think it's a great message. We always try to push the fans with us because it's always easier if the fans are with us and they don't boo us. It's better for us that we are all together and they can push us to the victory. For sure, it will be intimidating for Bratislava. We are playing at home, our first game. We will try our best to win and make this stadium a hell for them." Bernardo does of course have valuable experience in the Champions League under his belt already, and not only with Celtic. He made his debut for Benfica off the bench as a 19-year-old away to German giants Bayern Munich, so there is little that will faze him about taking on Slovan this evening. And he continued, "I wasn't expecting to play that game, but the coach put me on the pitch and I tried to do my best, and it was a good moment for me. We lost, but it was a very good step in my career, and a debut in the Allianz Arena, that's always nice. It's a different level. I dream about getting to that level, and I hope I can achieve it." Robert Lewandowski was probably the biggest star. Being thrown in at the deep end of this competition seems to have been a feature for Bernardo, who made his Celtic Champions League bow as a substitute in an understrength lineup that fell to Feyenoord away from home last term, before being flung into the heat of the battle against Atletico Madrid at Celtic Park after just 7 minutes, as Rio Hatate succumbed to injury. As at the Allianz Arena a couple of years prior, he puffed his chest out and met the challenge head-on, and it was an evening that perhaps gave the Celtic support their first real glimpse of the player they had on their hands. And he said, "It was similar to the night in Munich. We know that the games are always difficult in the Champions League, but it is an experience, and we can see the other guys, and we can learn things from that. I'm looking forward to doing that again. These are probably the most difficult games that we have, and I think these are the best games to show up to. I always try to be the best I can, but on this stage at another level, if you do the things well, you're probably a little bit better recognized. It was really important for me that I could have some minutes in those games. It really helped me develop, and it was a great experience. It wasn't just an experience, it was good for my development." Bernardo, of course, is far from guaranteed a starting place tonight, given the arrival of club record signing Arne Engels and the strength and depth that Celtic now have in the midfield. He will be ready once again, though, to contribute in whatever capacity is required of him, and when asked if the quality manager Rodgers now has in reserve could be critical to their chances of success in the competition, he said, "Yes, but I think we have to show up in all the games. If you don't show up in the league, you won't play in the Champions League. We always have to respect the opponents and to do the best we can. If we do these things well, you have more opportunities to play. I always dreamt about this competition, and I'm here to experience and to live that." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, September 18. Brendan Rodgers on the Celtic narrative people cry about. Report by Ewan Payton. Brendan Rodgers has identified the Celtic narrative that people will cry about as his side get ready to embark on their latest European campaign. Champions League nights are back at Parkhead tonight as Slovan Bratislava come to town. Rodgers insists the Scottish Premiership champions gave a good account of themselves in the competition last season, despite only managing to amass 4 points from their group containing Atletico Madrid, Lazio and Feyenoord. And he said, "You look at the nuts and bolts of it. People will say you only got 4 points, and then they will cry about that. And the season before, and the season before. I look at it that last year was down to decisive moments. Apart from the game away in Madrid where we lost a man early on and got punished by a team that got to the quarter-final, I thought in the other games we showed up well. We could have won the Lazio game and should never have lost it. Feyenoord at home we were good and won the game. Away to Feyenoord we were good and right in it. Then we concede and lose 2 men, and that's a challenge. For me, looking at it, I thought if we can strengthen the squad we can take another step closer, and we did that." The Northern Irishman admits he is comfortable with the Hoops being favoured for tonight's clash in Glasgow. In the first of several favourable ties for Celtic, it is widely expected that they should get off to a winning start against Slovan. Rodgers insists this is normal. Asked if he would rather they were not regarded as favourites, he said, "Not really. I think it's normal. We come into every game and respect the opponent. Obviously there will be a narrative around this game, which I totally get, but I look at Bratislava, and they have had 4 ties and 8 games to get to this stage, so they have put in a massive amount of work and fight to reach this level." Evening Times Sport, September 18. Next St Johnstone manager odds. Report by Ewan Payton. The betting odds for the next St Johnstone manager have been revealed. Craig Levein was sacked by the Perthshire club after a dismal run of form at the start of this 24-25 campaign. Saints sit 10th in the Scottish Premiership after only 5 games, having picked up just 3 points, which came in a 3-0 away win at Kilmarnock. New American owner Adam Webb has taken decisive action before more of the season is eaten into, as the 59-year-old became the first top-flight managerial casualty of the campaign. Now the attention turns to who will take over at McDiarmid Park, and according to Gambling.com, John McGlynn is the early front-runner for the job. The former Hearts manager has Falkirk riding high at the summit of the Championship, following their invincible season on their way to League One glory last term. Scotland under-21 head coach Scott Gemmell is also high on the list, as is former Premier League and highly experienced Championship boss Alex Neil. Unsurprisingly, Ayr United manager Scott Brown also features. The odds are John McGlynn 5-4, Scott Gemmell 2-1, Alex Neil 3-1, David Martindale 7-2, Callum Davidson 6-1, Billy McKinlay 8-1, John Kennedy 10-1, Scott Brown 16-1. Evening Times Sport, September 18. Brendan Rodgers says Celtic in best place. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Brendan Rodgers has stated that he believes Celtic are in the best place they have been entering a Champions League campaign during his time at Parkhead, and admitted he wants the Scottish champions to compete, not just participate, in Europe's elite club competition this season. The Glasgow club will take on Slovakian opponent Slovan Bratislava in their opening league phase match tonight, and are having won all 6 of the domestic fixtures they have played in this campaign and conceded just 1 goal, widely expected to triumph. Rodgers brought in Kasper Schmeichel, Paulo Bernardo, Adam Ida, Alex Val, Austin Trusty, Aaron Engels and Luke McCowan at a cost of over £30 million during the transfer summer window, and is confident he has both the quality and strength and depth he needs to challenge for a place in the playoffs. Parkhead chairman Peter Lowell stressed that he was keen for Celtic to be more than a regular European football participant in their annual financial report, which revealed the Premiership leaders have £77 million in the bank, and stressed they must progress as far as possible and improve our recent record. Rodgers, whose men will take on Bratislava, RB Leipzig, Club Brugge and Young Boys at home, and Borussia Dortmund, Atalanta, Dinamo Zagreb and Aston Villa away in the coming months, feels he is well placed to deliver the success on the continent which directors and supporters crave. And he said, "There's absolutely no doubt. This feels like the most ready I've been as a Celtic manager coming into a Champions League campaign. Last season, coming in, trying to find out about players, managing them through that, and seeing them in the competition was tough. But having had a year under my belt back here, and being able to improve a lot of the areas has helped. Readiness is a great word. This will be the best place that I've been in arriving at that first game since I've been here. But what I always believe in here as a club is that if we can get our squad to a really competitive level, what we can do here at home is make it a really special place to be and be really competitive at this level. That's what I've always wanted us to be. There have been a lot of occasions where, and no fault of the players, we just were not at that level. That's the reality of it. The players were good players, but maybe our depth wasn't quite there. But look at us now as a club, progressing, looking to go forward. The club has supported us fantastic in the summer, and we want to be able to do that again in some other areas, because we want to keep growing. We don't want just the benchmark to be domestic. We want to improve and do well in Europe, so it is an amazing level to be involved in. The level of performance has been consistent and aggressive, and everything that I'd want. But I always want more, and I want to bring that into a European stage, and for that you need that calibre of player. So the club have backed me great with that, and going forward, we want to add a few more as well. That will help evolve that. Currently, as I sit here, we are in a really good place. I come into the stadium, I look around, it's really exciting. The work that's going on behind the scenes here is making this an amazing place to come and work in, and play football in and support. So yes, on and off the pitch, we are in a really good place. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, September 18. Slovan manager plotting shock win. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Slovan Bratislava manager Vladimir Weiss Sr. has vowed to try and mastermind another shock Champions League result against Celtic, along with his Rangers fan son Vladimir Jr. at Parkhead this evening. Weiss Sr. was in charge of Slovakian minnows at Media Bratislava when they thrashed their Scottish rivals 5-0 in the first leg of their second qualifying round in 2005, and then recorded a 5-4 aggregate victory en route to the group stages. The vastly experienced coaches Slovenian men have come through 4 qualifiers this season and are not expected to cause the Glasgow club too many difficulties in their league phase opener in the East End this evening. However, the 59-year-old knows from personal experience that upsets can and do happen at the very highest level in Europe, and believes he has figured out how to cause Brendan Rodgers' charges problems. That was a long time ago, he said, when he was asked about that media triumph over Celtic. Of course there are nice memories and nobody will take them away from you, but now we are up against a different Celtic. They play a different style of football to 19 years ago. Brendan has a different type of football here, very fast, but we are capable of doing that as well. We will put in our best performance. We know what we can expect. We have players who have played here, and they know about the atmosphere. Many other players have said that this is really the best atmosphere in the world you can experience, but I think we have enough experience not to give in to that atmosphere, not to make mistakes. Of course, we know that most of the game we will be under pressure because obviously, just like we get the energy and the emotions from our fans, Celtic will get their energy from their fans. So you have to have the self-confidence, but also the discipline. Vice Senior added, "When I joined Slova, I wanted to prove something, and I am happy that we managed to do that, maybe even earlier than I thought. But after 3 years of working with the team to get into the main stage of the Champions League, I am very proud of the team, of the players, and of the fans. Because Slova have evolved. We have brought joy to the fans and the fans have come back to the stadium. And this is the biggest motto of our work. I think the players deserve to be here. We have not come here as tourists. It's a different kind of a model of the Champions League. We will try to snatch some points, maybe 1 point, maybe surprise them. Everything is possible in football. We have proved it many times, and we have seen what is possible to do. We are very happy and are looking forward to it. We will want to show our fighting spirit, our pride, and show what we are made of. It's the Champions League. It's the best teams in the world. It's like the Club World Cup. You have to be excited about it, and we can always surprise people. They are fast, and they have great quality. We know where we can surprise them. If we manage to do that, if we manage to break their good defence, if we manage to win one-on-one duels, then it's going to be good. Slovan captain Vice Jr. had a spell on loan at Rangers from Manchester City back in the 2010-11 season and helped Ibrox club to beat Celtic in the League Cup final after extra time and pip their City rivals to the Scottish title. His father revealed the winger has continued to support them since leaving and is looking forward to returning to the venue where he helped Walter Smith's team record a 3-1 triumph 14 years ago. And he said, "All our lives we've been talking about Celtic Rangers. My son plays for Rangers and he's a fan. He's a Rangers fan and he will face Celtic, their biggest arch rivals. When he was here at Rangers they won the double, so he has the best memories. And the derby with Celtic is the best. It's the top. He had a great time and he will play Celtic again. But he will be playing Celtic again for Slovan and we'll see how it goes." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, September 18. The unseen impact of Kevin Van Veen. Report by David Irwin. Stephen Robinson has revealed Kevin Van Veen is already having a positive effect at St Mirren, as he downplayed the need to babysit the striker. The 33-year-old Dutch striker is back in Scotland for a season-long loan in Paisley from Groningen, having spent part of the last campaign with Kilmarnock. Van Veen made his debut for St Mirren off the bench against former club Kilmarnock in the feisty 2-2 draw on Saturday. While unable to make his mark in the cameo appearance, Robinson has insisted Van Veen has already made a difference at St Mirren, driving striking standards at the Ralston training base. Kevin's quality shines through and through, said Robinson of the forward. He has done it at this level previously and will do so again. He knows he is 3 or 4 weeks behind the boys in terms of fitness and sharpness, but he has been brilliant since he came in. The boys have enjoyed him and he's driven up the standards of finishing. All of a sudden, the strikers have stepped up a little bit. That's what you want. He has fitted in really well, but there's still lots of work to be done, and he will get that over the coming weeks. I believe he will play a big part going forward. He adds that quality and he pushes the other players around him. Quizzed on coaching the forward, nicknamed the budget Bergkamp, Robinson insisted that Van Veen's attitude has been first class and certainly not indicative of a player who could be difficult to manage. And he continued, I don't find him difficult at all. We have lots of difficult characters and we're like a rehab centre for boys to put an arm around their shoulders and get their careers back. He has been nothing but first class, hard work and scores 30 goals. I'll take that. He's certainly not been hard work with me. He's bought into everything we're doing. Players need love and an arm around them. They are just boys. We see them as superhuman, and they don't have problems outside of football. Everybody has problems. Everybody needs to be treated more than just a piece of flesh which is thrown on the football field. Meanwhile, Robinson welcomed more transparency from the Scottish FA after Willie Collins knew the VAR review show analysing and explaining key flashpoints. There will probably be hours, Robinson joked, of the new initiative to go over controversial decisions in a public YouTube video filmed by the Scottish FA. Most of ours are contentious. The St Mirren boss continued, I think anything that makes the game better and makes things clear to fans is a good thing. A lot of people, and I include myself, commentators and people in the media, sometimes don't know all the rules and the reasons behind some decisions. The people that make the rules now just complicate the game. I don't know half the rules anymore, and I'm sure you guys are exactly the same. It will educate everybody and help the fans understand the reasoning for decision making, and it will maybe see more empathy shown towards the officials. They are only enforcing the rules the people above them set. Anything that improves Scottish football is a bonus, and anything that improves communication with fans, who are the most important people in football, is a step forward. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, September 19. Celtic boss singles out unsung hero for praise. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Brendan Rodgers has singled out Liam Scales for special praise in the wake of Celtic's stunning 5-1 win over Slovan Bratislava in their Champions League phase opener at Parkhead last night. Republic of Ireland centre-half Scales opened the scoring in the first half of the encounter with the Slovakian champions when he got on the end of an Aaron Engels corner and netted a header. However, the defender performed superbly afterwards and was named for the second Champions League match in succession, man of the match at the end of the 90 minutes. The 26-year-old looks set to head out on loan again at the start of last season and only remained in the East End of Glasgow due to a raft of injuries in his position. However, he established himself as a regular starter under his fellow Irishman Rodgers and helped Celtic to complete a Premiership and Scottish Cup double. Scales has kept new signing Austin Trust, who made his debut when he replaced Cameron Carter-Vickers with 5 minutes of regulation time remaining last night, out of the side in recent weeks. Rodgers was pleased with how his fellow Irishman acquitted himself against Slovan and admitted that he was a player who was sometimes unfairly overshadowed by the foreign imports in his side. And he said, "He's a really good header. I've said before, he probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I think with some of our boys, sometimes it's the way, whether it's the local guys or whatever. I've seen that all my life as a coach. The British players, the Irish players, they might not get the stellar name. Everyone's looking for something else. But these are the guys that stand out. They'll be waiting for you. The Greg Taylors, the Liam Scales, these guys, they are absolutely pivotal to what we're doing. Liam gets a fantastic goal and was really strong. He played very, very well. I'm really pleased for him because he's been a really consistent performer for us since he's got on the team." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, September 19. Matthew Lindsay says, Aaron Engels can take Celtic to a new level in the Champions League. The Champions League has proved to be a problematic competition for Celtic in the past couple of seasons, and victories have, despite laudable displays against the likes of Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid and Lazio, been hard to come by. Their promises to be with league phase games against Borussia Dortmund, Atalanta, RB Leipzig and Aston Villa coming up in the months ahead, some difficult encounters, and a few low moments for the Scottish champions again this term. But one of the biggest challenges which Brendan Rodgers might face after an emphatic opening win, the first they have managed in no fewer than 13 attempts. That win over Slovan Bratislava at Parkhead last night will be tempering the heightened expectations of supporters. Celtic's jubilant followers danced out of the stadium at the end of the 90 minutes, believing, with no little justification, that this might just be the year when they do a wee bit more than make up numbers. Rodgers balked at suggestions that the Slovakians would be easy opening opponents, both when the draw was made earlier this month and in his pre-match press conference on Tuesday evening. He pointed to the fact that Vladimir Weiss's men had successfully negotiated 4 ties and 8 games. They had overcome Struga of Macedonia, NK Celje of Slovenia, Apoel Nicosia of Cyprus and Midtjylland of Denmark to make it through to the Champions League proper for the first time in their history. He would, too, have been well aware that wily old warhorse Weiss had masterminded the infamous 5-0 win which at Media Bratislava recorded against his boyhood heroes in a qualifier back in 2005. But Celtic dominated from the first minute to the last and would have won by even more had it not been for Dominik Takac. The goalkeeper denied Daisen Maeda, Aaron Engels and Kyogo Furuhashi in the first half, and Engels and Alistair Johnston in the second. The atmosphere at Parkhead on Champions League nights is rightly renowned around the world. Some superstars of the global game, normally after they have enjoyed a comfortable win, have raved about it. The home supporters certainly cranked up the decibel levels a notch or two before hostilities commenced. There was a rendition of You'll Never Walk Alone, which would have brought a tear to a glass eye before the teams emerged from the tunnel, and that raised expectation levels around the ground tangibly. The Green Brigade normally produced something a little special for these occasions, and they did not disappoint. Giant banners were unfurled from the top tier before kick-off. One read, "Last night as I lay dreaming." The other two showed two of the Lisbon Lions lying in bed with the European Cup in between them, with a teddy bear in it the morning after their win over Inter Milan in 1967. You can say what you like about the Ultras group, and they really are their own worst enemies at times, but they help to add to the noise, colour and spectacle of big European games in the East End. On the last occasion that Vladimir Weiss Jr., the son of the Slovan manager and the Bratislava captain, had played at Parkhead back in 2010, he came on as Rangers romped to a 3-1 victory. The away win ultimately ensured they clinched their third consecutive Scottish title the following year. The home supporters had clearly not forgotten or forgiven. Every time the winger got on the ball, he was booed and jeered. There was uproar when he cleaned out Engels shortly after Liam Scales had broken the deadlock. He could have no complaints about being booked by referee Danny McAlealy for his bad-tempered lunge. Weiss, who won a double during the season he spent on loan in Govan from Manchester City, never quite managed to scale the heights which many thought him capable of as a youngster. But there's another wonder kid on the block now, and on the evidence of his performance against Slovan, he is destined for great things. Engels is just 20 and was only making his second start for the club he joined in the final hours of the summer transfer window last month. But there was a reason that Celtic broke their transfer record to land the Belgium midfielder. The £11 million signing looks capable of making his new club far more of a force on the continent. His dipping corner allowed Scales to become the first Irishman to score in the Champions League since Darren Gibson did so for Manchester United way back in 2011. But he came very close to netting powerful first-time shots himself, and his general play impressed greatly too. He was not in the slightest bit overawed by the enormity of the match, tried to get on the ball constantly, got forward frequently, showed great vision and played a few defence-piercing through balls to his new teammates. To cap an assured personal showing, he stepped up and coolly converted a penalty to make it 3-0. Believe the hype. This kid is the real deal. Paulo Bernardo could consider himself unfortunate to be left on the bench. The Portuguese was immense in the 3-0 win over Rangers before the international break. But a lot of games lie ahead in the 24-25 campaign, and he will feature. He came on when Rodgers made a triple substitution at 4-1. How much more influential, though, will Engels be as he settles into his new surroundings? It is a tantalising prospect for Celtic supporters, as is taking on last season's beaten finalist Dortmund in Germany on Tuesday week. Rodgers is certainly looking forward to working with the new recruit, and he said, "It was a great identification by our recruitment team. We knew after last year what we wanted and what I wanted in the team. It was someone who has got all the ideas that we want in terms of with the ball and technical and tactical ability. But at this level you need to have a physicality and running power. And he was one of the guys identified a number of months back last season. We knew he was playing in a top league, but we felt we could take him here and improve his game. He's a dead ball specialist, so we know his delivery at Augsburg was very good. He was the set-piece taker. You see his strike, just the power with which he hits the ball. It's just the level that he can get to. So I'm really pleased for him. Obviously he gets his goal. He shows really good composure. but the overall performance of him and the team was very pleasing. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, September 19. How many points do Celtic need to advance in Champions League? Report by David Irvin. Celtic could qualify for the knockout stages of the Champions League with just 2 more wins in the league phase. Opta statistics suggest 9 points would offer a 69% probability of progressing as one of the top 24 sides in the revamped league phase. Under the new competition format, the clubs finishing in the top 8 will advance directly to the last 16. The clubs between 9th and 24th will enter a 2-leg playoff with 9th to 16th drawn against 17th to 24th place teams. Teams finishing 25th or lower in the league phase will be eliminated from the competition, with no entry to the Europa League or Conference League. Celtic kick-started their campaign with that thumping win over Slovan Bratislava to put themselves second in the table, only behind Bayern Munich. Now Opta have worked out that 10 points from the league phase should guarantee progression, with a 99% probability to make the top 24 with that points total. Even 8 points would offer a shot at the top 24, with a 16% chance to make it. In order to finish as one of the top 8 sides, Celtic would legally need to pick up at least 15 points. That number would offer a 73% chance of making the last 16. Any clubs finishing on or above 16 points would expect to make the last 16 with a 98% probability. A 14-point haul would offer a 28% chance of a top 8 spot, but would rely on other results being favourable. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, September 19. What ruthless Rodgers told Champions League heroes. Report by James McLaughlin. Brendan Rodgers reacted to Celtic's Champions League win with congratulations, but showed his ruthless commitment to winning by telling his players it's now all about the League Cup clash with Falkirk at the weekend. Celtic defender Liam Scales explained that Rodgers was in no mood to rest on laurels after a stunning 5-1 home win over Slovan Bratislava that netted the Hoops €2.1 million in prize money. And Scales revealed that his teammates want to have a go in the remaining 7 games of Europe's Premier Club tournament. He told TNT Sport, "It was amazing, the result, first and foremost. A win like that does not come often in the Champions League, and to personally get the goal as well. I am delighted the Champions League, and to personally get the goal as well." The manager said congratulations, and that we now need to go and kick on in the League Cup at the weekend. There's tough games coming up. Every game is tough in this competition, but we want to really have a go this season. We are all more experienced now from previous years, and we want to pick up wins wherever we can. Arne Engels has proper quality on his deliveries, and he puts the ball in the right area for my goal. We know what areas to attack, and you just have to go for it. It was a perfect ball, and all I had to do was to get good contact, and that was it. The format gives us more chances to win and play at home, and I think the fans can feel that, and you could feel it from them. It was brilliant. Report by James McLaughlin. Evening Times Sport, September 19. Broken Slovan players admit Celtic schooled them. Report by Mark Walker. Slovan Bratislava striker David Stelic admitted they got away with only conceding 5 goals, as skipper Vladimir Weiss accepted they were completely outclassed by Celtic. Celtic ran amok against the Slovakian champions as they got their European campaign off to a sensational start with a 5-1 win. And Slovan Bratislava stars admitted they were blown away by the famous Parkhead atmosphere, and then by Celtic themselves in the Champions League opener. Strelic said, "In the second half they dismantled us, and we were happy they only scored 5 goals. The atmosphere was great and the fans were fantastic, but we wanted to come here and get a point, but we were nowhere near it." And former Rangers star Weiss admitted he blew a great opportunity in the first half before Slovan folded, and continued, "This was a very different Celtic than from a few years ago. It was a very difficult match for us. It's a shame I didn't take my chance at 1-0 down. If I had scored, maybe it would have been a different game. I didn't even get a shot away. Celtic showed great qualities and deserved their win. We came here and expected a tough match in an incredible atmosphere, and we got both. But we have to learn from this and improve as the tournament progresses." Slovan goalscorer Kevin Wimmer praised the Celtic performance, and the former Spurs defender said, "We were handed a lesson and schooled in football. It was a beautiful moment for me to score, and I thought that goal might give us a chance, but we made too many mistakes. We knew Celtic were a great team, especially at home, and that it would be very difficult for us, and I think they showed that. Tactically they are very good, and their fullbacks and midfielders are always on the attack. They overwhelmed us." Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, September 20. Engels earns rave review from Celtic teammates. Report by Graham McGarry. Sometimes you get what you pay for, and it is clear to see, even from his first few outings in the green and white hoops, that Celtic's record signing Arne Engels is a quality footballer. His obvious technical attributes and striking physicality aside, what has perhaps impressed the most to date is the temperament that has seen him coast through a debut against Rangers, make light of a high-pressure penalty against Hearts, and tuck away another from the spot as he made his Champions League debut against Slovan Bratislava at a rocking Celtic Park. The Belgian only turned 21 a couple of weeks ago, but the way he cruised through the game on Wednesday in particular even struck his teammates, like fellow goalscorer on the night, Liam Scales. The defender has been blown away by the way Engels has handled the transition from Augsburg to Celtic, taking the £11 million transfer fee the club paid for him, and anything their opponents have tried to do to stop him in his lengthy stride. He can play, but he can mix it too, as the rather heavy-handed Slovan midfielders found out during the week. And there is excitement within the Celtic dressing room around the new dimension that Engels may be able to bring to Brendan Rodgers' team, particularly on the European stage. Said Scales, "What's that saying? If he was any more laid back, he'd be horizontal." Honestly, he's brilliant. It takes a lot of guts to come in and play the way he's playing, straight into these massive fixtures. Playing against Rangers, coming into the Champions League game and doing so well. He's got so much quality. I think everyone can see that. He's brilliant. I think he deserves that record fee. He's a top quality player. He's just been brilliant. He's really getting to know the lads as well. He's just been top class all round. I'm looking forward to playing with him. He's well capable of that other side of the game as well. Obviously, he's technically brilliant. You can see that. But I think that sort of goes under the radar of how good he is. He's just a bit of a machine. There are players bouncing off him, and he's really getting to tackles. It's great to see that. You need your midfielders to do that. Another aspect of Engel's game that has been notable has been his set-piece delivery, something Scales took advantage of to crash home the opening goal of Celtic's Champions League campaign. And he said, "I watched it back, and the player a yard in front of me is at full strength in the air, and it's gone over his head and come down just in time to be right on my head. I've not even really had to jump. You can't really defend against crosses like that if it's got so much whip and dip on it. Obviously, we are at an advantage that we know what area he's going to play it into, and I'm going to make my run into there. It was perfect. I didn't have much to do other than just get good contact on it." If Scales was keen to downplay his own role in that goal, he was certainly up for making the most of the celebration that followed, with the explosion of noise from the Celtic Park stands a memory he will carry with him for the rest of his days. And he said, "It was just pure joy. You could probably see that on my face. I wanted to do a knee slide, but someone pushed me over. It was pure joy. I was delighted, and it was such an amazing feeling. Obviously, getting a result is the main thing, but to get a goal in the Champions League is something I'll have now forever. It was just a great start to the competition. In the first half, we were a little bit tentative, but we played our way into the game. The second half, we came out and blew them away, so that was brilliant. What we wanted was 3 points, and we got that, and the performance and the scoreline were brilliant as well, so we're delighted. We put down a marker, 100%. Obviously, you feel the atmosphere here. The teams coming here are going to feel that. It is important for us to pick up as many points at home as we can. It's a perfect start, really. You never know, it might come down to a goal difference, so to get 5 goals is brilliant as well." For all the euphoria around Celtic Park and the deserved plaudits the players are enjoying, Scales knows though that tougher tests lie ahead, and no more so than in the next 2 Champions League fixtures, when the team travel to take on last season's finalists Borussia Dortmund, before heading to Bergamo to face Europa League champions Atalanta. With 3 points in the bag and more favourable-looking home games to come, some may view those matches as something of a free hit for Celtic, but that's not how Scales sees it, and he pointed out, "It's the best start we could have hoped for. Now, can we build on it? We have to use it as a platform to continue to get good results. I think we're in a really good place at the moment. We're probably in the best place we can be to go and do well this year in the Champions League. That's the hope. We need to take it game by game and focus on picking up results. Even against the top-seeded teams, we need a bit of belief. If we play our game and play well, we can do it. Dortmund and Atalanta will be on paper probably the toughest ties, but we have some. Some people might say it's a free punch, but for us it's not. We want to go and approach every game the same way. We are seeing them as games that we can potentially win. That's how we prepare for them." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, September 20. Morton end J. Emmanuel Thomas deal amid drug charge. Report by Ewan Payton. Morton have terminated the contract of J. Emmanuel Thomas. The 33-year-old striker has been charged with orchestrating the attempted importation of drugs. Officers from the National Crime Agency, NCA, discovered 60 kilograms of cannabis with an estimated value of £600,000 in suitcases arriving at Stansted Airport from Bangkok. The professional footballer, who came through Arsenal's academy, was arrested at his home in Gourock on Wednesday morning and taken to Carlisle for questioning. A short club statement reads, Greenock Morton FC can confirm that the contract of J. Emmanuel Thomas has been terminated with immediate effect. The club will be making no further comment on the matter. Emmanuel Thomas, who previously played for Aberdeen and Livingston in the Scottish Premiership, as well as Ipswich Town, Bristol City, Queen's Park Rangers and Cardiff City, did not enter a plea to the charge as he appeared at Carlisle Magistrates Court. His lawyer said he strenuously denied involvement in any plan to smuggle drugs to the UK, and he wanted to clear his name at trial. Prosecutor Dane Jackson told the court that two women aged 28 and 32 had been arrested following the discovery of the drugs in London. They were travelling business class into the UK from Bangkok via Dubai. One of the women is the partner of Emmanuel Thomas. Ms. Jackson said, phone evidence shows that he carried out extensive research into flights and directions, which airports the females had been coming into. It is said this is not the first trip he has arranged. Nathaniel Gadsby, representing Emmanuel Thomas, said, he does strenuously deny any involvement in any plan to import drugs into the UK. He is eager to clear his name at trial. Mr. Emmanuel Thomas is a 33-year-old man of good character, no convictions. He has been a professional football player for all of his adult life and played at a number of top teams across the UK. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, September 20. Rangers supporters warned amid Europe safety concerns. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers have urged fans to change their accommodation plans if they are booking up for the away Europa League tie against Olympiacos. Philippe Clement's side will take on the Europa Conference League champions on November 7. The Scottish Premiership giants have European matches against Malmo, Lyon and FCIB to contend with before attentions on the pitch turn to the tie with Olympiacos. However, after consultation with police, UEFA and other relevant bodies, Rangers fans have been urged not to book accommodation in Piraeus for the match. This is due to safety concerns from local authorities and other clubs who have recently visited, such as Aston Villa last season. Instead, fans are being told to book up for Athens city centre, where buses will be put on before and after the game to allow for safe travel. The clubs wrote on X, following discussion with the police, UEFA, FSC and various clubs, we have been informed that fans travelling to Olympiacos away will be required to use mandatory coach travel to the match, as per local police regulations. This compulsory transport will operate between Athens city centre and the stadium in Piraeus pre- and post-match, regardless of the location of supporters' accommodation. Further details on the coach travel will be shared with supporters in due course. Given these arrangements, we strongly advise any supporters who have booked accommodation in Piraeus to change their booking to Athens city centre where possible, based on safety advice from the authorities and other clubs who have recently visited. We will continue having dialogue with FSE and all relevant stakeholders to ensure the best possible experience for our travelling support. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, September 20th. Stats site names 2 Celtic stars. Report by Joe Donnelly. Popular statistics site SofaScore has named its Team of the Week after the opening fixtures of the UEFA Champions League, naming 2 Celtic stars in its best-of lineup. Liam Scales and Aaron Engels feature alongside some of European clubs football's best, including the likes of Bayern Munich's Harry Kane, Atletico Madrid's Antoine Griezmann, and Manchester City's Josko Gvardiol. Scales was awarded UEFA's Man of the Match at Celtic Park after Wednesday night's 5-1 victory over Slovak champions Slovan Bratislava, whereas Engels scored and assisted during his second start under Brendan Rodgers. According to SofaScore, Scales accrued a rank of 8.1, with Engels receiving a 9.2. For the sake of context, 4-goal scorer Kane was given a perfect 10. Celtic's 5-1 victory over Slovan Bratislava marked their biggest win in the competition and their highest scoring. The club's 4-3 victory over Juventus on October 31, 2001, the previous holder of that particular record.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.